Hello everyone, and welcome to our Masters of the Universe special edition of Everything Zen. I'm your host Mark Sells, and today we are thrilled to have Tiffany Smith with us. Tiffany voices one of the lead characters in Kevin Smith's new Netflix series, Masters of the Universe Revelation. Her character, Andra, represents the audience's point of view into Eternia, all the happenings with He-Man, Skeletor, and Castle Grayskull. It's also notable that Andra is one of the first black characters in the series, which back in the 80s only had one. Clamp Champ, anyone? A spot-on doppelganger for Meghan Markle, Tiffany has appeared as Meghan in Lifetime's Harry and Meghan Becoming Royal, was featured in CW's Supernatural, NCIS, Behind Enemy Lines, and will be starring in upcoming lead roles in Aloha with Love and The Immaculate Room with Kate Bosworth and Ashley Greene. Indeed, Tiffany has the power. She's a lover of everything geek, hosting all kinds of comic book talk series from DC's Fandome to Collider's Jedi Council and G4's Attack of the Show. And she will be moderating the Masters of the Universe Revelation after show with Kevin Smith. So move over, Battle Cat, and buckle up as Ralph and I sat down with the wonderfully talented Tiffany Smith. Welcome to Everything Zen, Tiffany.
I love it. I'm like comics and Zen chilled. I'm going to be like comic book chilled out at the same time somehow.
Yeah. I mean, it made perfect sense to have you on because we know, obviously, you've been in this world for a while and you've done hosting on a ton of different projects like Geek Culture. Not Geek Culture. That's projects like DC Universe's DC Daily. I hope I got that right. Geeking Out with Kevin Smith. Okay. And you've done San Diego with IGN and Attack of the Show. You've been on that. I mean, I guess you've done a ton of this geek culture stuff for a while. Were you into comic books and graphic novels growing up, or was it just something you got into because, hey, these are the jobs I started to get, so I have to learn about it?
No, I grew up reading comic books and playing video games. And I joke that like my dad was my comic dealer when I was young because I started watching X-Men. And it was the first time seeing a character that looked kind of like me with Storm, and I was sucked in. And so my dad was like, well, if you want to see more stuff that Storm's doing.
This is how he brings you into it.
Yeah. So I've always been really into comics and, that whole space for me. I think I've said it before, but I think I'm multi-ethnic and feeling like you're a little bit of an outsider sometimes. The superheroes in that world, you always kind of feel, at least for me with X-Men, it was like you feel kind of sucked in. The thing that makes them different is the thing that makes them special. And so being a kid that felt like, I was the odd man out sometimes, it was the comics and superheroes that I was like, oh, that's what makes me special though. Right. So yeah, I've always been into that. And it was, I grew up going to the car shows with my dad. So I was working the car shows for a while when I was young or younger. And every time I'd come out to LA, I'm originally from out here, but every time I'd come back out, because at that time I was living in New York, I would find a way to meet with the talent coordinators at G4. Because I was like, this is the goal. I want to be on Attack of the Show. Gotcha. That's like the perfect spot for me because I went to school for broadcast journalism. And ended up getting to the place where they're like, if you lived out here, we could see about possibly putting you on some stuff on the show, but no guarantees. And so I was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I better do it now and try it. And then, I joke that like once you kind of step one foot in the door of like the geek world in LA, like all of the doors start to open where it's like, I worked at G4 and then I ended up hosting premieres for Marvel, and then from Marvel did stuff with DC. And for a long time I hosted stuff with Fandango because they knew that I was super into, the superhero action film kind of stuff. So I did a lot of stuff for them, which Fast and Furious are some of my favorite movies. I don't care what anyone says. I love them so much.
They're addictively.
They're so good.
It's weird. I don't know what it is, but they're on the 9th one, so they're doing something.
If they don't name the next one Fast 10 Your Seatbelt, I'm going to be really upset.
My God. Fast 10 Your Seatbelt. Good pun.
Trademarked by Tiffany.
Definitely not trademarked by me. I have too many friends that are writers, and they definitely tweeted it. And I'm like, now
okay, fair.
We're all putting it out there. I will claim it as my own.
That's great.
So I've always been into this kind of stuff, and it kind of when I booked the show for DC, it was so funny because the producers went to my comic shop. I auditioned, and then the owner of the shop was like, hey, so a couple producers showed up from DC stuff, and they were asking if you actually shop here. And
that's so random.
Yeah. Well, there was a part of me at first that was like, that sucks. And then I was like, no, you know what? Like, if you're a host in that space, you know, people want to know that you really know your stuff and that you really are a genuine fan. And I think authenticity comes across. And so when they went there, I was like, yeah, I do shop here and I come in every week. And, you know, it was one of those things where I was like, if you guys wanted to make sure I actually know this stuff, I do.
Right.
And I still I'm sure you guys experience this too, but in the comic space, it's like, or in the geek space in general, people expect you to know everything. If you say you like something, it's like, you're supposed to know everything about it.
Yeah, no, that's true. I can imagine.
I try really hard to be like, no, you don't. One of the first panels at Comic-Con I was ever on was called, I don't know if I can curse, but it was called I Don't Know Shit About Comics. And so it was comic book people, and we were all answering questions that people were too scared to ask because they thought they would get like shamed or something, or made fun of. And I love that because I'm like, but like comic books, that geek space is welcoming. So anytime I can, you know, lead someone to a new comic they've never heard of or show them something that they thought maybe wasn't their jam, and it is, I love that.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I started this company 16 years ago when I didn't know anything about comic books. My business partner did, but I didn't really know the world. So I had to like learn as I was like I started writing comic books without ever really reading them. So when I do Comic-Con and get questions about fan culture, I'm up front. I'm like, I don't know a lot. Like I know some stuff that I started reading after I started this.
Yeah.
So I imagine when you're hosting a show about geek culture, you're going to get tested a lot, I assume. Could be probably annoying.
Very early, I've told everyone, I'm like, I hate trivia. Like, I don't care if you were like, what is your name? I'd be like, dog. I don't know. I just panic. I've been that way ever since I was little when it's like testing your knowledge with that kind of stuff. So my mom always laughs because she's like, I don't know how you host live things and do live things. I'm like, because there's not a right answer. Like, sure. There's no pressure in me chatting or hosting something and having a conversation. But if it's like, this is right or this is wrong when I say this, I'm like, oh no, I can't do it. I just start sweating and I'm like, I can't do it. So everybody kind of knows that about me as a host too. And I'm like, I don't do trivia games because they stress me out too much.
Right.
Like me and the PSATs.
Yeah. Well, it started from doing, I don't know if you guys played this game when you were little, but it was like learning your multiplication, your times tables. And it was you go around the room and play around the world, and you'd stand up behind a kid, and then it was like the teacher would say 9 times 9, and whoever got it right got to move on. And I know that's where the stress came from because I was really bad at times tables when I was little.
Yeah, I can see that. Post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
So what was your major at Syracuse, and at what point in time did you realize you wanted to do hosting, acting, all of this for a living?
I always wanted to do something in the entertainment industry. I wanted to act. I wanted to be in a pop girl group. And my parents both were really strong proponents of, you need to go to college and get a degree, and then we can talk about all that stuff, which I'm so thankful that I did, because I went to Syracuse and I studied broadcast journalism, and I minored in music industry because at that time I was like, I'm going to be a singer. I want to be able to look over my own contracts. And the hosting program, broadcast journalism program at Syracuse at Newhouse was so amazing. Our last semester of our senior year, you have to do every position on a newscast. And I still, to this day, I'm like, I think it was one of the most educational and helpful things for me in my career, because I realized that I cannot do all those jobs, and it takes everyone doing their job well to make a newscast run. So it's like, one day I was producing, the next week I'm on camera, the next week I'm setting up the interviews. And, it helped so much, because so much of this industry, whether you're hosting a show or acting or doing a voiceover on an animation, it takes a whole team. And knowing that you're not good at all of the jobs, to say this person's incredible, I will let them take the lead, and I'll feel confident, following what they explain to me or help me with. So I studied broadcast journalism there. And then I didn't start auditioning for a little while because I was nervous. I was like, I don't want to like not have a job. And so I worked at a modeling agency for a little while, and I was an assistant there, and they would send models out, and they weren't super chatty with us, the assistants. And so I was like, well, if they can go out and audition, like, I think I could probably do this.
Right.
So I started auditioning, and the first job, I always joke, I'm like, I booked a job that was off Craigslist. And my like stipulation on Craigslist when I would submit was like, it can't have a money sign as an S, or like a 3 as an S, or like any weird misspelled things, because you didn't know where you were going, or who was actually putting up the audition. And I ended up booking a job that was for an AOL countdown show. And after that, I was like, auditions just kept building and the jobs kept coming, which I just always kind of say, if the doors keep opening, I'm going to keep walking through them. And the acting stuff came back up again, because I think the only way I can kind of describe it is like in other jobs, you would get a promotion or you would try something new and you can challenge yourself in different ways. And in this industry as a host, you know, I've done a lot of stuff. I've been very, very fortunate and very lucky to do a lot of things. And some of those things have brought me to sets where I get to watch other actors working. And I was like, man, I want to do that. I really want to do that.
Right.
And so I always think of myself as very scrappy and a hard worker. And so I started taking more classes again while I was still doing all the hosting stuff and not really telling everyone that I was auditioning, because I wanted to make sure that when I did go into the room and people were like, oh, you're a host, that it was, you know, I was actually being an actress in that room and not
right.
a host who was kind of just thinking I could now do this thing as well. Because, you know, acting, hosting, acting on camera versus acting on voiceover, they're all unique in their own ways. And I think they take a unique skill set and, you know, yourself into that space. And so, yeah, I started auditioning and started booking things on the acting side of things. And I feel very, very lucky because I know how hard it is for people to kind of have a toe in a couple of different pools. Is that a saying? I don't know. I just made it up.
It is.
Ponds, toe and pond, I don't know. But
lakes,
yeah,
lake,
something like that.
Never.
But it's been, you know, I feel very welcomed. You know, I get to do red carpets now where it's, you know, my friends that I worked with as a host we get to chat and they're doing me kind of, and
right.
It's awesome because I feel like it's coming home to family every time I get to do press for something.
Okay. Right.
And just getting like, you know, I get some of the sweetest messages ever where people are like, I started watching you on G4. I've been following your career. I know how hard you work. It's so awesome to get to see your career grow and build. And, it's one of those things, like, as the person it's happening to, sometimes you can get lost in the weeds of what's happening right then. And so to have people kind of say, like, I've watched you the whole journey. And I'm like, wow, yeah, like I work really hard, but I am incredibly blessed and lucky to get to do what I love. Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty cool that you're able to do both of these things. And sometimes there is crossover, you know, to hosting and acting, but I don't think not everybody sees it that way. Some people, oh, you're a host, so you can't act, or vice versa. And it's just like, you know, when it works out the right way, it must be a really cool.
Yeah. I mean, with Master of the Universe, it's like I hosted stuff with Kevin in the past.
Right.
I auditioned for this and ended up booking it. And then after we finished, they were like, we're going to do an after show and we want you to host it with Kevin and Rob. And I was like, awesome. Like, about having, you know, someone who has the perspective of being the voiceover actor, but also I know what that feels like to host something too. So it's just, I love that I'm like, I get to, on one project, get to have both of those things going at the same time.
Right. So did you meet Kevin through, somebody just put you together? Is that how you first met him? And
I met Kevin for the first time. I think it was, we were doing a live stream, I think, for the trailer for Man of Steel. So he was doing a show with Zack Snyder, and I was there to interview both of them for DC All Access.
Right.
That was the first time I met him, and then interviewed him again for some stuff on CW. I did an after show for The Flash, and it was when he was directing and stuff. So we did that show together, and then the next project that came up, I got a phone call that someone was like, hey, I'm working on a show on AMC with Kevin Smith and Greg Grunberg. And they were like, we want to add another host to this show, and we want like a geeky female who really knows her stuff. And Kevin said me, which is so flattering because Kevin's just like an icon in the geek industry.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I did Geeking Out on AMC with him. And then since then, it's kind of been anytime we can find ways to work together. He's such a kind, awesome, enthusiastic guy that anytime there's anything where I'm like, his name is on, I'm like, yes, please, can I audition for that?
Right.
Yeah, this one is another one of those projects that I feel super, super lucky to be a part of.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, let's talk about Masters of the Universe for a sec, because, you know, the original was very white, very masculine, dare I say, testosterone-y. Tell us a little bit about your character and how she fits into the world of Eternia.
I would say this show is kind of a continuation. It picks up and brings Master of the Universe to 2021. And Andra is a character that was in the comics, but very, very sparingly. So people didn't know a lot about her. Her name's Lieutenant Andra. That's pretty much it. So when they were developing this show, they were like, we want to, bring in a new character. And I was so excited that obviously they wanted to diversify Eternia more. So getting to play that character that's bringing that into this world is so incredible, because I grew up watching animated shows and I would point to the characters and be like, I'm her, I'm him, I'm this, whatever. But it was never anyone that really looked like me. And so now getting to voice a character that, other kids, or I call myself still a kid, that I'm like, people my age or older can watch and be like, I'm her, is so awesome, and feels really, really, I just feel really lucky that I get to do. I know I said that a lot, but I do. I feel like it's one of those things sometimes where the pieces just fall into place, and I keep walking through the doors and being who I have been day one. So Andra is the character. Once they decided they were going to bring her in, they wanted to really honor the name. It's not the same character, but she's kind of like the audience. She's excited about Eternia. She's excited about meeting all these people. She's heard so much about it. So when, there's moments where I get to be like, oh my God, this is so cool. That's Tiffany, but Andra is also that way in the world.
Right.
So that was really fun to play with that, and
right.
I think on any show, or there's like a lot of characters that are like that people just relate to so much, where it's like you get to fangirl out about the project that you're in while you're on it. It's awesome.
Yes. I remember I watched the cartoon. I can't even remember how old I was when this was out. But did you watch the original series in prep for your role, the whole thing again, or had you seen it before?
I watched when I was younger. My sister and I loved, I said, I watched so much animation when I was little. But we would run around and be like, I'm He-Man, Wonder Woman, Princess of Power, She-Ra, Jen and the Holograms. It was just mashing every name together we could think of. So I had seen the show, and when I booked the job, I got the DVDs again and I rewatched them. And it was just so fun, because it's like, I don't know how your mind remembers stuff, but it's like there were moments and scenes and the little clips at the end that were the lesson of the day. That I was like, I remember this. I remember seeing this. I remember being so excited and watching these shows. And, I don't think I ever then realized that, I could be where I'm at now and being a voice on a show like this. But I have a picture of me, I think it's from first grade, my class photo, and I'm holding a Mermista action figure from She-Ra, Princess of Power. So I was like, clearly. I'm hoping for something like this, even from a very young age.
Right. That's funny. I had the Gray Skull Castle, Mark. I don't know if you're jealous of that or not, but
I had it too.
One that I'm building.
Whatever.
Oh, look at this!
I've been working on this for the last 2 days.
What?
Oh wow!
Look at you.
That's impressive.
Look at her.
Thank you. It was my I was like, I'm not going out. I'm just going to work on building Castle Grayskull.
That's so funny.
That was what made me, when we said the Zen thing at the beginning, I was like, I Zen out when I'm doing puzzles and Legos and coloring and stuff. So that's great.
Well, a big part of Masters of the Universe was the action figures. So I looked out, and on the first series of Mattel, I didn't see your character yet, but I'm certainly hoping that she might appear.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see. I would be stoked, over the moon.
Yeah, if you get an action figure made out of yourself, you have to be like, that's it.
I occasionally will let myself think that, and then I'm like, no, Tiffany, don't go there yet.
Yeah, don't get ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
But you have to will it into the universe.
Well, that would be like the pinnacle of like the geek culture mountain is, you voice a character on a popular animated series and then you get your own action figure. Ooh.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, there's literally moments where I just pinch myself thinking about the jobs that I get to do. And if I told my younger self, this is the stuff you'd be working on, or this is the projects that you'd get to be a part of, I don't know. I think I would believe it, but in a different way than I do now, because I've always been super optimistic and like, yes, this is going to happen. But actually getting to do it and be at this place now where it's, even going to conventions and there's, parents that will bring their daughters up, or someone who is, looks more like me will come up and be like, watching you do this show made me feel more comfortable to talk about that I love comic books, or that girls can do this stuff. And that is so awesome to me because, like I said, there wasn't a lot for me to see of myself. And so getting to be that for people sometimes now it really makes me happy, warms my heart.
Speaking of looking like you, I hear that like Meghan Markle gets all the time that she looks like you.
Yeah.
Do you think that bothers her? I'm just kidding. So
if there's like a biopic about me at some point, maybe maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean that would make sense. So, you did do. You played her in that Lifetime movie. So. Well, I mean, I guess everybody. You do look a lot like her. Let's not kid ourselves. Did you have any contact with her when making this movie? I assume not, but maybe you did beforehand. Or
everyone's like, oh, did you guys audition together? And I wasn't really acting yet when she was in LA auditioning and acting and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I never met her, cross paths or anything. But that project for me was such an awesome experience because, sorry, my dog's on the floor. Anyway, it was such an awesome experience for me because I am multiracial. And so seeing their relationship and the things they went through, it really opened up lots more conversations with my parents to be able to talk about, stuff that they went through when they were younger and getting married. And where it's like getting to play a person who's real life or otherwise that people feel inspired by or can see themselves in. It's, I hope that every character I get to play is that kind of a person. Because honestly, it was like I had, people come up to me with that one where it was like, little girls are going to watch this and realize that like they can see themselves as a princess. Yeah. And I clearly am not actually her, but I'm like getting to do the movie, even getting a little bit of that, it was such a wonderful feeling, and learning more about her and Harry and all the stuff, like great projects that they're working on. And, they just, it was great because I learned so much about them and it helped me learn stuff about myself too.
Right. I'm sure it did. That's really cool. Do you still, I assume you get mistaken for her a lot. Does that happen still a lot, or is it does it not every now and then? I'm just curious. When
there's press out about them, I get it a lot more.
Okay.
Now though, because people know that I've done the film, then it's like, right. Oh, you're the girl who played her in the other.
Okay. So they can differentiate at least.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I think they can. There was a time where like I jokingly, this was way before. This is when I guess they were still dating. I was in London and I was there for work and I was doing a run in Kensington Park and I had on like an LA Dodger hat and I got in front of the Palace, which is where they were living at the time. And so I asked someone, I was like, hey, can you take a photo for me in front of here? Cause like I'm by myself. And and the guy was like, are you Meghan Markle? No. And if I was, like, I didn't realize that, like, that was where they lived. I was like, oh, my God. Imagine, like, some magazine picked it up and was like, Meghan Markle seen asking a passerby to take a photo of her in front of her house.
In front of her house. I need you to take this so I can put it on Instagram in front of her. That's hilarious.
But anytime people say it, I'm like, she's stunningly gorgeous. So anytime people are like, you look like her, I'm like, that's a huge compliment. Thank you.
You could also do like a switch with her if you ever needed to, like you know what I mean? Like if she needs like a body double as her.
You do a princess swap. Well, a definite swap.
consider it.
Come on, Netflix.
Yeah. Christmas movie, here we come. All right.
Outside of acting and hosting, I read that you're quite an environmentalist and an ocean conservationist. Where did your passion for these begin? How active are you today, and how can listeners help?
So for me, it's always been something where I feel so recharged when I spend time outside. And I learned to scuba dive a couple years ago, and there's something about being in the ocean that's so refreshing and life-bringing, that when you see trash and junk and all kinds of stuff everywhere, there's just like a part of my heart that's like, okay. And there's stuff that we can do that's small that can make such a big difference. And this month is actually July plastic free. So a lot of people are doing that on social media, but so I gift a lot of glass straws to people. I have reusable cups and glasses and things where when I'm on set, I always try and have that kind of stuff with me to show that like it is, yes, you have to put a little bit more thought into it, but it's not impossible to do. And when you see the effects that it has, especially with where we are in the world right now, where you're just like, if we could each just do a little bit, if we just do a little change, it can make such a big difference. I mean, I drive a hydrogen fuel cell car and I feel like such a superhero badass when I'm driving. Because I'm like, the only thing it puts out is water.
That's awesome.
So the car girl in me and the environmentalist is like, this is awesome.
Right.
So yeah, I had done a lot more and was more involved in the past, but obviously this year I haven't got to go out and do a bunch of stuff. But anytime I can, it's my favorite thing, like I said, to gift people things where it's like, hey, I got you this cool reusable glass. It's my favorite one that I take with me to the coffee shop. And now you don't have to go.
Yeah. And you'd say in a way you're not trying to be too preachy. You're like, hey, how about this option?
Yeah. And if someone gives you, it's like, it's a gift, you're a lot more likely to be like, okay, cool, I'll try this.
Yeah, right. It's just changing habits. I mean, it's something we can all do.
Tiffany, our last question for you is, outside of Masters of the Universe, what current projects do you have in the pipeline? What's up next for you?
So I was super lucky to get to go to Maui and film a rom-com during the last end of quarantine. And so
jealous.
Well,
I'm so jealous.
It was again where I'm just like, of all the projects to get to come out of quarantine, and Hawaii is one of my favorite places in the world. So I got to film a movie there. It's called Aloha with Love. And if you guys follow me on social, I'll let you guys know when and where that's going to air.
We will now.
Just wrapped up.
We will now. We'll follow you now.
But yeah, so working on that, and then starting to try and kind of produce and see about doing some podcasts, and who knows? We'll see.
And were you doing like a kind of like hosting a wrap-up show on Masters of the Universe with Kevin?
So me, Kevin, and Rob, who is one of the executives, the three of us host it, and there is one that will air at the end, the one that will air on July 23rd.